Good morning, and we are going to begin as we do most Sundays with song. So let us rise in body and spirit and sing Circle Round for Freedom, number 115 in the gray hymnal, or the words on the order on the screen. 155 in the gray hymnal. Times. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us in prison, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children, keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us in prison, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children, keep the circle whole. The poet Denise Levertov once wrote, "Peace, like a poem, is not there ahead of itself, can't be imagined before it is made, can't be known except in the words of its making, grammar of justice, syntax of mutual aid." We are here gathered this morning to build out our grammar of justice, to practice the words of making peace, to honor our history and look forward toward a world where everyone is free. Welcome to the Unitarian Society of Santa Barbara. Welcome into this loving community of seekers where we strive to live with integrity, nurture wonder, and inspire the actions that transform us and transform the world. I'm the Reverend Julia Hamilton. I use she, her pronouns, and I am delighted to be with you this morning, along with our community choir and Gwendolyn Kilfoyle bringing us some music, Heather Levin on the piano, our worship associate Peter Hale, and Charlotte Bergante, our director of Lifespan Religious Exploration, all of the folks who make Sunday morning happen, which includes you. Whether you are here in our physical sanctuary or joining us online in our virtual sanctuary, we are one community on this one earth, under this one great sky, and it is good to be together. I'd like to extend a special welcome to any visitors, friends, and family we have joining us this morning. If you're here in person, we would love to get to know you at our coffee hour afterwards. There's a welcome table you can stop by and ask any questions you like about the congregation. If you're joining us online and want to keep connected, there's a little visitor button above the screen where you're watching the service, and if you click on that, you can give us your contact information so we can reach out and let you know of all the ways you can get connected to what's going on here in the congregation. That Friday email you get is chock full of opportunities to get involved, and there are a couple of things in the insert of your order of service if you're here in person. and I want to highlight a couple of them. The first is that after the service today, after you've had a chance to get a cup of coffee in Parish Hall, I invite you to join us in the lower campus, in the community hall down there, for our town hall on the budget. Very exciting, right? It's because we are working towards our annual meeting, which is on June 8th, and this is an opportunity to see and get to know the proposed budget for the coming year, to participate in the democratic governance of this congregation, because it will be you who is voting at that annual meeting to approve the budget, to elect leadership, and to chart the course forward for this coming year. So please join us for the town hall. If you're joining us online, this will be recorded and available so you can watch anytime. And the annual meeting on June 8th will also be live streamed so people can join us either way. June 8th is also our annual flower communion, so don't forget to bring a flower with you to that service because it is one of our most beautiful and beloved annual traditions on June 8th. We have a couple more opportunities for our Lunch and Learn, our new adult religious exploration programs. You can talk to Charlotte Brigante to find out more information about that. And we have, speaking of the season of democratic governance, we do have another opportunity. Keith Strohmeyer, one of our members, is on the Pacific Western Regional Board, and they are having their annual meeting on Thursday, and we need a delegate from this congregation to show up to help get quorum. It's on Zoom. It's a wonderful way to get to know Unitarian Universalists from near and far, and you can talk to Keith after the service during social hour. I invite you now to take a breath, to settle yourself wherever you are, to set aside the busyness that follows us wherever we go, and allow yourself the gift of being here in this community, in this hour, as we ring our gong and let the sound connect us.
If you are participating from home, please join us in our chalice lighting. What could be more basic and valuable than our Unitarian first principle, recognizing and honoring the inherent worth and dignity of all people, not just us, not for a select few, or a part of the world that we consider worthy. The radiance of our flame we kindle this morning shines without favor on everyone, for everyone. May the light within each of us do the same. As part of our Sunday service each week, we highlight something hopeful and inspirational that we've observed or experienced during the week. I was walking through Parish Hall last Thursday morning, and it was filled with babies. Lots of babies. Moms and some dads, too. That's the weekly PEP group, Postpartum Education for Parents, that uses our facilities for its meeting place. What joyful energy. And if that isn't good enough, I was reminded by the recent news about the infant named KJ, who was cured of his fatal genetic condition by the gene editing technique called CRISPR. This was a group effort. The Philadelphia Children's Hospital, the University of Pennsylvania Medical College, private industry, the FDA, and the National Institute of Health, all collaborating to create a custom treatment for KJ in 6 months that would normally take 10 years. This technology promises cures for many other genetic diseases as well. At 10 months, KJ is a pioneer, and the science that saved him is more than a good thing. It's a wonderful thing. Ironically, these same organizations are on the federal chopping block. Funding for the National Institute of Health is going to be cut 40%, being deemed too wasteful, too science-oriented, and serving too few people for the money invested. I wonder what KJ's parents think about that.
I invite us now to take a brief moment to say hello and greet someone near you. Maybe introduce yourself, welcome each other into this space, and then we will sing once more with our community choir. All right, everyone, I am so glad to hear you connecting, and we'll have plenty of time to continue these conversations during our social hour. But now we are going to sing together, and this is a song that is going to require some participation. So we're going to follow Gwendolyn's lead, and I'm going to invite you to rise in body and spirit.
All right, good morning. We're going to lead with love here this morning. I will teach you all the chorus, and then the verses are call and response, okay? And we should have some lyrics up there in just a moment. So the chorus goes like this. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. I hear some murmurings like people have heard this before. Okay, let's try it. Here we go. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with... Awesome, keep that going. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot keep it going. One foot in front of the other, one foot, and lead with love. God put one foot, and lead with love. The other one foot, and lead with love. Don't give up hope. You're not alone. Don't you give up. Keep moving on. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Again. You gotta put one foot in front of the other. Lift up your eyes. Don't you despair. Look up ahead. The path is there. You gotta put one foot in next to you. Right next to you. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. And lead with love. One more time. And lead with love. Woo! All right. Thank you, everybody.
Wow, that was fantastic. Thank you, Community Choir. And now, if there are any kids out there who would like to put one foot in front of the other and come on forward for a story, that would be great. Kids or anyone who wants to come sit on the steps with Julia, that would be so great. Oh, good, Peter, always a child at heart. Here they come. Clark and Theo, Stella, Felix, welcome everyone. And in a bit, I'll have you stand up because there are going to be some slides on the screen, but you'll know when those are coming, so. Good morning. I'm going to back up a little. So, history shapes our lives, right? And what we do with our lives can shape history, too. That's how it was with Daniel French, a sculptor and a Unitarian. Daniel Chester French was born April 20th, 1850, in Exeter, New Hampshire, into a family of successful lawyers and judges. But as a child, Dan loved to draw, and he decorated notebooks with names and drawings of the birds he saw: golden plovers, blue jays, woodcocks, golden wings, and quail. Do any of you like to draw? Yeah, some of you do, and draw birds. Anybody draw birds? Yeah, some of you, yeah, great. Well, in 1867, when Dan was 17, his family moved to the little town of Concord, Massachusetts. Dan's father said, "The people of Concord were finer than the clothes they wore and the houses they lived in." Among their neighbors were Amos Brown Alcott and his family, including Louisa May and Abigail May Alcott, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Margaret Fuller, Henry David Thoreau, and Nathaniel Hawthorne. Perhaps some of you have heard of some of these people. Like Daniel, they all had Unitarian leanings. As a teenager, Dan worked on the family farm. He went to college for a while, but he failed algebra, geometry, and physics. Really didn't like school too much. Back on the farm, he wondered what to do with his life. And then one morning, Dan was in the barn bundling tender asparagus to sell at the market when he spotted an odd-looking turnip on the dusty floor. He picked up the turnip, took his pocket knife from his pocket, and began to carve. He was so engrossed in carving, he lost all track of time. And when he had finished, he had transformed the turnip into a fine-looking frog. And that morning, Dan learned something. If a turnip can become a frog, what might the son of a judge become? With his family's support, and that's important, I think, with his family's support, Dan started carving and sculpting every chance he had. Dan's neighbor, Abigail May Alcott, became his first art teacher. May, as she was known, insisted he learn to draw, so he began attending her drawing classes, which she held in their family's barn. Later, he started taking the train to Boston to study drawing and anatomy from a doctor who was also a sculptor. And after a while, he apprenticed with a famous sculptor in New York City for a while. When Dan was 20, the people of Concord wanted a statue to honor the 100th anniversary of the first battle of the American Revolution, a battle that took place right in Concord. Dan got the job. Other military monuments depicted famous generals, but Dan wanted to sculpt an unnamed hero, a man who could represent any of the local farmers who fought the Revolutionary War. These farmers turned soldiers were called Minutemen. 3 years later, on April 19, 1875, thousands of people crowded the Old North Bridge for the unveiling of Dan's Minuteman statue, and I think we're going to have a picture of that right up on the screen if you guys want to pop over and see that. So thousands of people gathered for the unveiling of this statue, including the President of the United States, Ulysses S. Grant. But guess who wasn't there for the unveiling? You all can stay over there. I'll just project that way. Guess who wasn't there for the unveiling? Dan. He had already left for Florence, Italy, where he studied sculpture from Italian masters for the next 2 years. When he returned to the US, Dan began receiving commissions to create statues of monumental Americans who had helped shape the country. Years passed. Dan became a husband, a father, a famous sculptor, and a teacher. Then in 1915, when he was 65 years old, his friend Henry Bacon, an architect, made him his most monumental offer yet. Congress had put aside nearly $300,000 for land, a building, and a statue in Washington, D.C. to honor Abraham Lincoln. Bacon asked Dan to sculpt the statue of Lincoln as the memorial's centerpiece. Bacon and his committee wanted Dan to create a fresh view of the monumental American who reunited the nation and ended slavery. Henry Bacon said to Dan, "It must be the most perfect statue of the man that human hands can design. It must seem to have a soul." Are we seeing the statue right now? Okay. Before he began to design the statue, Dan did a lot of research. He read books and articles about Lincoln. He talked to Robert Todd Lincoln, the president's son. He studied casts that had been made of the living Lincoln's hands and pored over photographs of the great man's wise, craggy face. Just as America was built by many hands, so was the Lincoln Memorial. Blocks of white marble for Dan's statue were blasted and cut from a Georgia mountainside by the sons and grandsons of American slaves. The floor of the memorial was built of pink Tennessee marble. The exterior was covered in marble from Colorado, and the steps were made of Massachusetts granite. Dan began work on his statue by creating 10-inch clay sketch models in different poses. From there, he moved to a 3-foot-high working model and then a 7-foot-high clay model. And he sent a plaster casting of that model to the New York studio of the 6 Piccirilli brothers, sons of Italian immigrants whom Dan had worked with for many years. They would carve his statue into stone. The Piccirillis enlarged and carved the statue in 28 pieces. The blocks of marble were transported separately to Washington, then assembled in the memorial like a 3-dimensional puzzle. The completed statue was 19 feet tall. Is there another picture up there with people in front of it? Great, that's the one. So you can get a sense of how big that statue is. Dan took great care to shape Lincoln's hands. One is balled into a fist to project the firmness needed to hold the country together. The other is open, as Lincoln needed to be, to hear the American people's many voices and move the country toward healing. The Lincoln Memorial opened 103 years ago on May 22nd, 1922. In 1963, Martin Luther King Jr. gave his famous "I Have a Dream" speech on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. President Barack Obama, our first Black president, marked the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington with a speech there in 2009. Millions of Americans have gone to the Lincoln Memorial to honor Lincoln and the ideals he lived and died for: truth, justice, equality, charity, and unity, ideals that Americans are still striving for today. By shaping clay, Daniel Chester French helped shape American history. He sculpted more than 100 monuments in his lifetime, including a statue of Unitarian Thomas Starr King. Is he up there? Which you can visit in Golden Gate Park in San Francisco. He once told his daughter that if he had his wish, he'd like to live to be 2,000 years old and just sculpt all the time. I'll end our story this morning with these words from Daniel Chester French, sculptor and Unitarian. Look for beauty, not ugliness. Look for goodness, not evil. Look for cheer, not trouble. And that's our time for all ages this morning.
I invite us now into a time of reflection and meditation. Perhaps settle yourself where you are, attend to the breathing as it moves in and out of your body. Bring yourself to this moment together. On this Memorial Day, as we remember the people who have fought and died for the ideals which we still strive for, I wanted to share this poem by Maya Angelou, A Brave and Startling Truth, recognizing that peace is still out there when we come to it. We, this people on a small and lonely planet, traveling through casual space, past aloof stars, across the way of indifferent suns, to a destination where all signs tell us it is possible and imperative that we learn a brave and startling truth. And when we come to it, to the day of peacemaking, when we release our fingers from fists of hostility and allow the pure air to cool our palms, when we come to it, when the curtain falls on the minstrel show of hate and faces sooted with scorn are scrubbed clean, when battlefields and coliseum no longer rake our unique and particular sons and daughters up with the bruised and bloody grass to lie in identical plots on foreign soil. When the rapacious storming of the churches and screaming racket in the temples have ceased, when the pennants are waving gaily and the banners of the world tremble stoutly in the good, clean breeze, when we come to it, when we let the rifles fall from our shoulders, and children dress their dolls in flags of truce, when landmines of death have been removed and the aged can walk into evenings of peace, when religious ritual is not perfumed by the incense of burning flesh and childhood dreams are not kicked awake by nightmares of abuse, when we come to it, then we will confess that not the pyramids with their stones set in mysterious perfection, nor the gardens of Babylon hanging as eternal beauty in our collective memory, not the Grand Canyon kindled into delicious color by western sunsets, nor the Danube flowing its blue soul into Europe, nor the sacred peak of Mount Fuji stretching to the rising sun. Neither Father Amazon nor Mother Mississippi, who without favor nurture all creatures in the depths and on the shores. These are not the only wonders of the world when we come to it. We, this people, on this minuscule and kithless globe, who reach daily for the bomb, the blade, and the dagger, yet who petition in the dark for tokens of peace. We, this people on this moat of matter, whose mouths abide cantankerous words which challenge our very existence, yet out of those same mouths come songs of such exquisite sweetness that the heart falters in its labor and the body is quieted into awe. We, this people, on this small and drifting planet, whose hands can strike with such abandon that in a twinkling life is sapped from the living. Yet those same hands can touch with such healing, irresistible tenderness, that the haughty neck is happy to bow, and the proud back is glad to bend. Out of such chaos, of such contradiction, we learn that we are neither devils nor divines. When we come to it, we, this people, on this wayward floating body, created on this earth, of this earth, have the power to fashion for this earth a climate where every man and every woman can live freely, without sanctimonious piety, without crippling fear. When we come to it, we must confess that we are the possible. We are the miraculous, the true wonder of this world. That is when, and only when, we come to it. So ends our reading. May it be so. I'm going to invite us now to stay right where we are and sing together Vine and Fig Tree. It's number 399. And we'll sing it gently together from our seats. We'll sing it through twice.
Who counts? I don't mean numerically. I mean, who in your life is worth honoring? Is it only family and friends? Our trash truck driver is Enrique. If I'm out early, I give him a wave and acknowledgement. Our newspaper delivery man is Miguel. I depend on him to bring me the world every morning over a cup of coffee. I give him a Christmas bonus and a note of thanks. Occasionally we chat with the firemen up the street at Station 6. They keep our property safe. And then there's Alex, our mail person, who delivers daily reminders of community connections and our obligations. I give him a card each year with a check enclosed because we appreciate what he does for us. Would you ever think, when retrieving your letters, that many postal workers have not only been injured in accidents or by the occasional vicious dog, but killed by gunfire, bombs, chemical attacks, and biological weapons, just so that your mail gets delivered? It certainly never occurred to me until we visited the National Postal Museum in Washington, D.C. a couple of months ago, where there is a memorial wall that honors the postal workers and inspectors who died in the line of duty. Are these dedicated men and women worth honoring? Do they count? It was just announced that 10,000 of these folks are being laid off. We arrived in a city in turmoil. Government workers were being fired, whole departments shut down, like the Department of Education, where we got caught up in a large demonstration. People who had made their careers helping our children were receiving 2-sentence emails telling them not to show up for work. That's if they were lucky. Others simply had their security keys electronically swiped and had to find out they were fired because they couldn't get into the building. Some were dismissed within months of achieving their pension. Is this how we treat people? How we honor the worth and dignity of every person? It's not just in government that people are being devalued. The Smithsonian Institute maintains 21 cultural venues in DC, which are partially funded by the federal government, but that is enough to pressure them into compliance with the new political correctness. The administration sits on the board of the Smithsonian. Their sole purpose in being there is to, quote, remove improper ideology. The National Women's Museum and the Museum of African American Heritage, which are part of the Smithsonian, have had their funding withheld and can only get it back, maybe, by removing objectionable material, like half the contributions of women and minorities to this country. The Museum of the American Indian, also part of the Smithsonian, hasn't been hit yet, but they know their time is coming. All that pesky history about how Native Americans were systematically extinguished, it's not uplifting, not part of the national narrative. The Veterans Administration, the National Weather Service, the FAA, the FBI, the air traffic controllers, our healthcare resources, the Consumer Protection Agency, our social safety net are all being vandalized. It seems like the sentiment now is, who doesn't count? What can we successfully cut out of the American experience without anyone noticing or caring? What to do? I don't mind lending my physical presence to a parade, a demonstration, or a gathering for justice and equity in human relations. There's strength in numbers. But what can I do personally? Last Thursday, I was already late for my meeting with Reverend Julia about the service today, when I was confronted by a gentleman in the courtyard gate. He was elderly, disheveled, and confused. I asked him if he was all right and what he needed. His eyes focused. I don't think he was used to being recognized and talked to. But we did talk for a few minutes. I told him about showers of blessing and gave him some money. Easter Sunday morning, I was crossing the street to come here and saw a man rolled up in a tarp under our little free library. I sat with him and asked if I could get him anything. He said, oh, he'd love a cup of coffee. And I invited him to our pancake breakfast after the service, and likewise gave him some money. In both cases, I was on a mission. I was in a hurry. But now it seems as if my mission statement has changed. Why? Well, for one thing, I've joined the Rebel Alliance and feel obligated to help because I can. I have the means and the time because I belong to an organization whose principles guide me to do it. Because it feels good to help someone out, but mostly because of some strange evolutionary process. I can now see little difference between these folks and myself when we're one-on-one. It's easy to discount people when they're grouped together. Call them whatever, immigrants, the deep state, bureaucracy, or just those people. When we begin separating people into categories, blaming them for the perceived grievances, it never works out well. The Jews were blamed for Germany's economic strife prior to World War II, and they were made to suffer. But the greater population of Germany, who turned a blind eye, suffered as well, with millions lost and cities left in ruins. Who counts? Everyone. And either everybody counts or nobody counts. Unless we can honor our shared humanity and value as citizens, there will be those left out, vulnerable and exploited, generally to everyone's detriment. I don't want to leave you with the impression that Washington is not worthwhile. It is. If you have never been to our nation's capital, I urge you to put it on your bucket list. Donis and I have been there several times. And I guarantee you will find out who counts when you're there. Because it is a city filled with honor, for valor, for invention, for the arts, for governance and citizenship. All the things that have made this country worth celebrating and loving. Each Sunday, we share a part of our offering with a worthwhile organization that reflects our values. This month's offering is being shared with Transition House, which was founded in 1984 by 12 faith-based groups, our society being one of them. It has grown over the years to provide not only emergency shelter for families and meals for families in crisis, but daycare, counseling, job placement, and permanent housing. It is certainly one of my favorite charities here in Santa Barbara. Would you please read with me the affirmation of gratitude and giving, printed in your order of service or on the screen? Let us be grateful when we are able to give, for many do not have that privilege. Let us be grateful for those who share their gifts with us, for we are enriched by their giving. And let us be grateful even for our needs, so that we may learn from the generosity of others.
Thank you, Community Choir, for singing with us this morning. Good morning to everyone again. So on the morning of Thursday, April 3rd, I woke up in the Best Western in Fairfax, Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C. The conference I was there to attend didn't start until later that evening, so I decided to take the train into the Capitol and wander around the National Mall for the day. It happened to be the weekend of the Cherry Blossom Festival, so I was hoping to catch some of those famous trees in bloom as well as see some of the sights. I'm wearing my cherry blossom stole in honor of that. I have not spent much time in Washington, D.C. I was there once when I was 2, when my parents attended a Peace Corps reunion at the White House, sponsored by Lillian Carter, Jimmy Carter's mother. I don't think there's going to be many Peace Corps events at the White House again anytime soon. But I never had the chance to see most of the great monuments, some of which we've been talking about already this morning. So I was looking forward to visiting these iconic sculptures, especially at this moment in time. There was a big protest planned for that Saturday, and the mall would once again be filled with thousands of people fighting for a vision of justice and democracy that the founding documents of our nation describe, but that perhaps we have never fully lived into. I arrived with questions on my mind and in my heart, alive with the fear that this democratic project of the United States of America is in danger of slipping away. And what I found there were not answers to my questions, but rather the profound sense that by being there, I was part of this ongoing conversation about the evolving ideals of a nation that has always been struggling to make sense of itself. A conversation that spans centuries and that will probably never be completely resolved. A conversation that raises more questions than it answers and that evolves with each generation's sacrifices, sins, and successes. It was, in some ways, a spiritual experience. After all, what is our faith but a faith that values questions over sure answers, a faith that embraces the challenge of growth rather than the seduction of certainty, a faith that requires we examine and re-examine our own assumptions so that we may move ever closer to living up to some of those ideals that we share with this nation. The right of all people to flourish in freedom, and the responsibility of caring for one another that comes with a shared civic life. Rights and responsibilities, values and ideals, the same thing that we talk about here each week, are the subject of this national conversation written in stone and sculpture. I had expected to find the statues and inscriptions of each memorial moving and thought-provoking. What I had not expected was how much the experience of walking from one memorial to the next changed how I encountered them. Rather than moving down a list, Lincoln Memorial, check, Vietnam Wall, check, the meanings of each of them were influenced by the presence of them all there together in this one big space. I have some photos to help make this point. So there's the Vietnam Wall here in just a moment. How many of you have been there? Quite a few. This stark obsidian line in the earth with the list of names rising and falling out of the grass, the personal items and the children's drawings. This is a stark rebuttal to the World War II memorial just across the lawn, which is the next photo. This huge imperial and impersonal plinth rising from this fountain that was empty on the day that I saw it. Almost no one there. This heroic and grandiose attempt to claim a victory after the atrocities of the Holocaust and the terrifying reality of nuclear weapons. But by being in proximity to one another, the monuments said more together than they ever could have said alone. Perhaps the most moving relational conversation was between the Martin Luther King Jr. Monument and the Thomas Jefferson Memorial. Standing in proud strength, holding what is perhaps that promissory note of the American dream in his hand, Dr. King is looking out across the tidal basin right at Jefferson's Rotunda. So that view of the Rotunda, that's the view that King is looking toward. Calling to account the man who wrote the Declaration of Independence, that all men were created equal, but who never let go of his own ownership of other human beings. History calling back to itself. Dr. King martyred for demanding his dignity, a dignity that Jefferson could imagine and write about but never fully embrace. And finally, the Lincoln Memorial. And when I was there, I had no idea that the sculptor who conceived it was so closely connected to our Unitarian tradition. But it makes me proud to know that the ideals of Emerson and the Alcotts and all those other radical social reformers of their time, they're part of this story too. But beyond the impressive sculpture itself, it was Lincoln's words that were inscribed on either side in this massive multi-story text on the wall that moved me to tears. The Gettysburg Address is on one side, dedicating that battlefield to the memory of the soldiers who died there, but proclaiming, "It is for us the living, rather to be dedicated here to the unfinished work for which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth." And on the other side, his second inaugural address just before the end of the Civil War, reminding the nation that the war was fought to end the scourge of slavery, and yet longing for a just and lasting peace. A peace that he hoped would bring healing. A healing that today still seems distant on this 5th anniversary of the death of George Floyd. A healing we are still struggling to find. These words, full of both pain and hope, ring against the backdrop of the fight we are in today, everything we are struggling to preserve and improve about this democracy. Lincoln, in his massive seated presence, calling back to the words of Thomas Jefferson, forward to the unfinished dream of Dr. King, never knowing all of the assortment of people that would be gathered on the steps at his feet, each in their own way, in their own time, in protest, in patriotism, in public witness. Each one of us who shows up there, part of this conversation about what the nation is and has been and yet could be. And looking out from the Lincoln Memorial, this is the view, the last photo here. This is what Lincoln is looking out towards. The Washington Monument, the largest obelisk in the world. At the time it was built, the tallest building in the world at 555 feet and 5 inches. And to quote from the website of the National Park Service, "The monument, like the man, stands in no one's shadow." But while we may have built a monument that dominates the horizon of the Capitol, Washington himself made one thing very clear. Although he was a decorated general and the nation's very popular first president, he would be no king. We were never to be a nation of kings. A king commissioned statues of himself to decorate his empire. None of these monuments were designed by the people they commemorate. They were made by those who came after, trying to make sense of the lessons and legacy of change. After Washington's service in the war and his time as president, he was not thinking about monuments to his achievement. He wanted nothing more than to retreat to his home in Mount Vernon and rest away from the public eye. And that song that we sang earlier, Vine and Fig Tree, it's from a biblical quote that was a favorite of Washington's. He referenced it more than 50 times in his letters and writings. It comes from the Hebrew Scriptures and is repeated in several places, but is most well known from the book of Micah. And they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up a sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore, but they shall sit, every man, under his vine and under his fig tree, and none shall make them afraid. I can see why that sentiment might have been a favorite of Washington's. The whole thing is about the peace that is promised to come after struggle and war and nation building, after exile and trauma. It is a vision of the end of days when all people are reconciled with their God. It must have been a great comfort to Washington to believe that he was establishing a nation where everyone from every background could hope to find their own vine and fig tree and be unafraid of tyranny or the harsh whims of kings, to find respite and make peace with the God of their understanding. As the Reverend Kimberly Debus described it when talking about that verse that made its way into our hymnal, the passage was not so much an anti-war sentiment as a let's fight, let's win, and then let's go home sentiment. It's more of a lament, a longing, than a protest. It casts a vision of this hard-won peace, this future free from fear, even amidst the violence of the present moment. And so moving amongst these monuments in this historical moment, this question that arose most forcefully for me most clearly was this: what is that struggle that we are in? What is the necessary struggle of this moment that might be remembered in stone in future? When must we fight? And what are the ideals and aspirations for which we are willing to struggle? Sometimes the monuments question the sacrifice. After all, the Vietnam War Memorial asks very clearly, was this worth it? Did we know why we were fighting? There is nothing there but the names of the dead and the reflection of our own faces. And others, like Lincoln, mourn the sacrifice but lift up the cause as necessary. And still others, like the FDR Memorial, which I didn't get to see on this trip, unfortunately, it shows that not all struggles are on the battlefield. It depicts the breadlines from the Great Depression, the wheelchair that he hid from the nation. In a complicated and imperfect and often cruel and violent world, peace is the result of struggle, not the absence of it. Peace comes not when we let go of the fight, but when we do the difficult work of transformation and healing that comes while we do the difficult work. Even when committed to nonviolence, to finding alternatives to warfare, there is still work to be done. There is still necessary struggle. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King answered the question this way in 1964 in his Nobel Prize lecture: "We will not build a peaceful world by following a negative path. It is not enough to say we must not wage war. It is necessary to love peace and sacrifice for it." Each of these monuments asks us, what were the people of each generation willing to sacrifice in the pursuit of this ideal? How do we define and redefine those ideals through the years as our nation matures? And who is included and who is excluded from them? These are monuments not just of war or in memory of the individual men who led through transformative times, and yes, they are all men. It's hard to find a woman there. You can find them if you look. But they are all part of an ongoing, still evolving conversation about the larger struggle to define our national identity and articulate our shared values. And we must be part of that conversation. We are not the first to be called to this work, and we will not be the last. And we may long to sit under our vine and fig tree. I know that there is not a week that goes by that I don't raise my eyes sitting in my office and wonder why we made these choices that had led us to this moment when we could have done otherwise. But here we are, in this moment. And any peace we find will be here, in the midst of the struggle, in the companionship we find along the way, and in the moments of hope and healing we carve from the stone of our lives. That is our work. Let us take it up. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen. We are going to sing together one more time. It's a new song. It's a song that has a melody that is easy to pick up. You might need to sing it through the first verse, but by the second and third verse, hopefully it'll come along. We're going to have our song leaders come forward to sing it. It's number 1051, The Oneness of Everything. Please rise in body and spirit and let us sing together. right where you are, and if you want to put your hand over your heart, or if you have permission to reach out and hold hands with the person next to you, or hold your hands open, however it is, you get connected to that oneness of everything that is among us. And as you go out into this beautiful and heartbreaking world, may the light of love shine upon you, out from within you, be gracious unto you, and bring you peace. For this is the day we are given. Let us rejoice and be glad in it, and let us call out a blessing.